But again, you can see, like this one's got quite a bit of room on each side of that screw where the clamps go. But if you can see my finger there to simulate, see if you rotate that clamp around, it wouldn't take much for it to interfere with the rotation of that shaft. But basically you should be able to look down through them, although the middle one between the number 2 and number 3 is a little difficult. But you should be able to look down through them and see just how close they are, and maybe you'll get lucky and that's what your problem is. This one you may not be able to see, but you can just barely see the screw. That's the back side of the clamp. You can just barely see that screw, and if that clamp is rotated around just enough, you see how close it can get. It wouldn't take much for it to interfere. Sometimes this doesn't fit just right there, and what you may have to do is pull the cable out of its happy little home. Pull the cable out of its happy little home. What you do, you pull the rubber deal back, and there's a crimp on the end of this that is inside, and they're very tight to get them out. But what you may have to do is pull the casing apart, trim a little bit of the rubber off on the outside so that it will fit back inside correctly. But you may have to, on a couple of them I've had to wrap electrical tape around it to make it big enough to seal against the inside of the big hole, if you have trouble, if you can't get it on the end. And these, any decent motorcycle shop will have these in stock. This one's Champion's Choice, but just about every motorcycle shop I've ever been to usually has them for sale. You can get them in a kit that comes with a smaller bottle or smaller can and one of these. I think you can buy them just by themselves, but so you can also see how brown this is. It used to be chrome, and if it's rusting like this on the outside, you can pretty much bet that it's going to be similar on the inside. And most of the cables anymore, some of the older cables, you just had a metal coil that the inner casing rode back and forth in. Most of the newer cables have like a Teflon lining, and even with that Teflon lining, when the rust starts to develop on the inner cable, the metal actually expands as it's rusting, and stuff comes apart and gets lodged into that Teflon lining, and it's like sandpaper. It just doesn't want to go anywhere. This is what happens on those clamps. Ideally when you would, except on the carburetor, but as you're pushing on the screw trying to tighten it up, they rotate around, or as they come together, the screw, pokes out. But what happens is it turns around as you're tightening it up, and then it winds up interfering with something, with the throttle shaft on the inside. So you always kind of want to, stick them towards the outside down on the carbs before you tighten them up, that way, or a little farther past, so that when you tighten them up they'll be good and out of the way.